The grave spoke not with whispers, but with the undeniable language of a crushed skull, a fracture pattern indicating blunt force trauma decades after the town had quietly agreed Sarah Jenkins simply ran away. Her remains, unearthed by chance near the crumbling foundation of an old mill outside Oakhaven, Massachusetts, did not just tell a story of violence. They screamed a narrative of betrayal and a community's chilling complicity. On the crisp autumn morning of October 14, 2018, nearly 30 years after Sarah vanished, a demolition crew was clearing the long-abandoned Oakhaven paper mill, a relic of the town's fading industrial past. Bulldozer operator, a man named Carl Henderson, noticed something unusual as his bucket scraped against the earth beside a collapsed stone wall. It wasn't just debris. A glint of metal caught his eye, then the distinct curve of a human femur. He stopped the machine, the roar of the engine dying, leaving an unnatural quiet. What he found next sent a shiver through him, a small, tarnished silver locket, and then unmistakable human bone fragments protruding from the disturbed soil. He called the foreman, who in turn called the Oakhaven Police Department. Detective Robert Thorne, a seasoned veteran who had only been a patrol officer when Sarah Jenkins disappeared, was among the first on the scene. He remembered the posters, the worried faces, the whispers that had eventually faded into resigned acceptance. Now, staring at the exposed earth, he felt a cold dread mixed with a grim sense of anticipation. This wasn't just old bones. This was history clawing its way back to the surface. The area was quickly secured, a perimeter established, and forensic anthropologists from the state police were called in. The excavation site became a meticulously mapped grid. Every fragment of soil, every pebble, every artifact a potential piece of a long-lost puzzle. For days, under a canvas tent shielding them from the relentless New England drizzle, specialists painstakingly sifted through the dirt. They recovered not a full skeleton, but enough to confirm the remains belonged to a young adult female. Dental records, specifically a distinctive silver filling Sarah had received just months before her disappearance, provided the definitive identification: Sarah Jenkins. The locket, clutched in what would have been her hand, contained two faded, tiny photographs. One of a young man, the other of Sarah herself, smiling, a ghost of her former self. The initial autopsy report was stark. The cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head, specifically a massive fracture to the occipital bone, consistent with a heavy impact. The presence of tiny fabric fibers, partially degraded, indicated she had been wrapped in something before burial. The manner of death was unequivocally homicide. This wasn't a runaway. This was murder. And the town, Oakhaven, which had buried her memory under layers of quiet conjecture, now had to face the brutal truth of what it had allowed to fester for 3 decades. Who was Sarah Jenkins? She was 16 years old when she vanished on August 22, 1988, a warm summer evening that gave way to a muggy night. Sarah, by all accounts, a vibrant, if somewhat restless teenager. She lived with her widowed mother, Eleanor, in a modest 2-story house on Elm Street, a quiet, tree-lined road just a few blocks from the town square. She worked part-time at the Oakhaven diner, saving money for a car, and dreamed of leaving the small town for a big city, perhaps Boston or New York. Her friends described her as fiercely independent, a little rebellious, but fundamentally good-hearted. She wasn't known for running away, despite the town's collective narrative. That night, Sarah had finished her shift at the diner around 9 p.m. Witnesses, including her co-worker Martha Vance, remembered Sarah being in good spirits, laughing about a clumsy customer. She'd walked home, a route she took almost daily. Her mother, Eleanor, confirmed Sarah arrived home, had a snack, and then around 10 p.m. told her mother she was going for a walk, just to clear her head. She'd kissed her mother goodnight, promised not to be out late,
and walked out the front door, vanishing into the summer night. Her mother waited up, growing increasingly anxious as the hours ticked by. By dawn, with Sarah still not home, Eleanor called the police. The original investigation in 1988 was, in retrospect, tragically flawed. Oakhaven was a small town, its police force understaffed, and its methods rudimentary compared to modern forensics. The initial assumption, fueled by a few whispered rumors about Sarah's desire to leave town, was that she was a runaway. Her rebellious nature was cited as a primary factor. Detectives questioned her friends, her mother, and a few local boys she had dated. No one had seen anything suspicious. No struggle, no scream, no strange car. The last confirmed sighting, other than her mother, was her walking alone down Elm Street towards the town park. The search efforts were minimal, primarily confined to the park and the immediate surrounding areas. Within weeks, the case file grew thin, then cold. Eleanor Jenkins, however, never believed her daughter ran away. She spent years posting flyers, making calls, haunting the local police station, her grief a constant, raw wound in the heart of Oakhaven. But without a body, without evidence of foul play, the official stance remained unchanged. Sarah Jenkins was a missing person, presumed to have left voluntarily. Eleanor eventually moved away, unable to bear the weight of a town that had, in her eyes, forgotten her daughter. The mill, ironically, was one of the last places anyone would have thought to look. It was derelict even then, considered dangerous, a place to avoid. The reopening of the case in 2018 brought with it a different kind of intensity. Detective Thorne, now leading the investigation, understood the gravity. He had not just a cold case, but a community's long-held secret to unearth. The first step was to revisit every single person interviewed in 1988. Many had moved, some had passed away, but enough remained in Oakhaven to make the task daunting. He knew that memories faded, but guilt often festered. He looked at the old files, scanned the poorly typed notes, and saw a pattern. Too many open questions, too many quick assumptions. The original officers had not pressed hard enough. The forensic report detailed the extent of the head trauma. The object used was likely heavy, with a somewhat irregular surface. There were no defensive wounds on her arms or hands, suggesting she was either taken by surprise or incapacitated quickly. The degraded fabric fibers recovered from the burial site were analyzed. They appeared to be remnants of a heavy, dark canvas or burlap sack, consistent with materials used in the paper mill itself. This detail placed the crime, or at least the disposal of the body, directly at the abandoned mill. Why would someone bury her at the mill? The location itself seemed to hold a clue. It was remote, overgrown, but also familiar to anyone who had grown up in Oakhaven. It was a place where teenagers often snuck off to, a place where privacy could be found, or trouble. Thorne began to draw up a list of individuals who had connections to the mill in 1988. Not just employees, but anyone known to frequent the area. The locket became a critical piece of evidence. The small, faded photograph inside showed a young man with distinctively wavy dark hair and a faint scar above his left eyebrow. This wasn't just Sarah's locket. It was a testament to someone she cared about. The locket was carefully cleaned and the photographs enhanced using modern digital techniques. The young man's face became clearer. Detective Thorne recognized him immediately, not from the old case files, but from his own childhood memories.
It was David Miller, a few years older than Sarah, a quiet and tense young man who worked odd jobs around town, including occasional shifts at the very same paper mill Sarah's father had once managed before its decline. Miller had been questioned briefly in 1988, but his alibi, provided by his older sister, seemed solid. He was home all night, studying. But alibis built on family testimony from decades ago often crumble under fresh scrutiny.
Thorne requested old employment records from the mill, which, miraculously, had been archived by the Historical Society. David Miller had indeed worked there sporadically, often on the night shift as a cleaner. More crucially, the record showed he had clocked out unusually early on the morning of August 23, 1988, just hours after Sarah disappeared. His sister had not worked at the mill, so her knowledge of his exact movements would have been limited. A small crack began to appear in the town's long-held silence. The re-examination of David Miller's 1988 statement revealed he had denied any close relationship with Sarah, claiming they were just acquaintances from school. Yet, the locket told a different story. Not only was his picture inside, but the locket itself was a gift. Engraved on the back, almost imperceptibly, were the initials DM to SJ and a date, 7/15/88. This meant the locket was given just over a month before her disappearance, indicating a much deeper, more intimate relationship than he had claimed. It was a secret they had kept from the town, from Sarah's mother, and even from the original investigators. When Detective Thorne and his team approached David Miller in 2018, now a middle-aged man living a quiet life in a neighboring town, he was initially composed. He maintained his innocence, sticking to the same story from 1988. But Thorne brought out the locket, placing it gently on the table. The sight of it seemed to visibly drain the color from Miller's face. The quiet intensity he had possessed as a young man had morphed into a weary resignation. He denied the engraving, claimed he'd given it to a different Sarah, but his eyes kept darting to the locket. The physical evidence, unearthed after 30 years, was undeniable. Thorne then presented the updated forensic report, highlighting the blunt force trauma, the fabric fibers consistent with mill materials. He spoke of the precise location of Sarah's grave, just meters from where Miller would have clocked in and out for his night shifts. The silence in the interrogation room was thick, heavy with unspoken truths. What do you think makes people keep such dark secrets hidden, even from those closest to them? Share your thoughts below. Finally, after hours of questioning, David Miller broke. The confession, delivered in a choked, almost emotionless monotone, was a story of a clandestine affair, a heated argument, and a tragic, impulsive act. He admitted that he and Sarah had been secretly seeing each other for several months. Their relationship was volatile, passionate, and kept hidden because Miller believed Sarah's mother would disapprove, and because Sarah herself had a boyfriend, Billy Peterson, a popular football player who Miller felt intimidated by. On that fateful night, Sarah had met Miller at the old mill, a place they often frequented for their secret rendezvous. She had just told him she was pregnant. Miller, then barely 20, panicked. He was terrified of the repercussions, of his conservative family, of Billy Peterson's reaction, and of the responsibilities of impending fatherhood. He pleaded with her to consider other options, to tell Billy it was his. Sarah refused, insisting she would tell Billy the truth and that Miller needed to step up. The argument escalated. She had thrown his words back at him, taunting him about his cowardice. In a moment of uncontrollable rage, he picked up a heavy, rusted pipe lying nearby, a piece of old mill machinery, and struck her, not once, but twice.
The sheer horror of what he had done washed over him instantly. He saw the locket fall from her hand as she collapsed. The weight of his actions crushed him. He spent the next few hours in a daze, trying to comprehend, trying to undo the irreversible. But the only path he saw was to conceal. He wrapped her body in a burlap sack he found in an old storage shed at the mill, carried her to a shallow grave he dug with a rusty shovel near the collapsed wall, and buried her. He then went home, destroyed his bloody clothes, and returned to the mill to clock out as if nothing had happened, his mind a whirlwind of fear and denial. He lived with that secret for 30 years. The town's belief that Sarah had run away had been his saving grace, allowing him to construct a normal life, marry, have children, and attempt to outrun the ghost of his past. But the grave, in its long, silent slumber, had held the truth, waiting for its moment to speak. The motive, so deeply hidden by fear and shame, finally surfaced, painting a chilling picture of an impulsive act with lifelong consequences. The confession sent shockwaves through Oakhaven. Many in the town felt a collective guilt, a sense of failure. How could they have been so wrong? How could they have allowed Eleanor Jenkins to suffer for so long, believing her daughter had abandoned her? The casual assumption that Sarah was a runaway had not been just a mistake. It had been a convenient fiction that allowed a small town to avoid confronting a darker reality within its own borders. Detective Thorne reflected on the societal implications. When a case goes cold, the fear is that justice will never be served. Have you ever felt a story like this needed a voice? If so, consider subscribing to Verita Crime to ensure these stories are told. This was a story not just about a murderer, but about the insidious nature of community silence, the way fear can warp perceptions, and how a convenient narrative can become a shared delusion. The original investigation's failure to probe deeper into Sarah's life, to challenge the prevailing assumption, had left a murderer free and a mother heartbroken. The question of why no one else spoke up remained. Miller stated he acted alone, and no evidence ever contradicted that. But who else might have suspected something? Who saw him at the mill that night, or in the days after, acting differently? The town had a pervasive feeling that people simply didn't talk about unpleasant things. Oakhaven was a place where reputations were carefully guarded, and any disruption to the quiet order was often met with willful blindness. The arrest of David Miller and his subsequent trial brought a reluctant spotlight onto the small town. Eleanor Jenkins, frail but resolute, attended every day of the proceedings. For her, it was not about revenge, but about validation, about finally giving her daughter the justice she deserved. Miller pleaded guilty to manslaughter, a plea bargain reached to avoid a lengthier trial, citing diminished capacity due to panic and rage. He was sentenced to a significant prison term, finally paying a price for the life he had stolen and the decades of deception he had perpetuated. Eleanor, with the eyes fixed on Miller, not booked vengeance, but a form of validation, about finally giving her daughter the justice she deserved. The confession of Miller, perturbed by the allegation of diminished capacity due to panic and rage, perceived a cold admission of a crime that had corroded the community of Oakhaven for more than 30 years. A condemnation was a disfetch, yes, but it didn't erase the decades of questions without answer, the absence of Sarah, or the weight that community had carried, often unconsciously. The countryside, accustomed to its facade of tranquility unwavering, was forced to encounter a spirit that reflected a much darker image than anyone wished to admit.
As fofocas que haviam sido por anos a força motriz da sociabilidade de Oakhaven transformaram-se em sussurros carregados de culpa e arrependimento. Memórias fragmentadas de Miller, de Sarah, de incidentes menores na noite do crime começaram a ressurgir, mas tarde demais para mudar o curso da história, apenas a tempo de atormentar consciências. Para muitos em Oakhaven, a prisão de Miller foi um alívio paradoxal. Um monstro que andava entre eles, um lobo em pele de cordeiro, havia sido finalmente enjaulado. Mas esse alívio vinha com um custo, a perda da inocência coletiva. Oakhaven não era mais a cidade onde nada de ruim acontecia. Era a cidade onde um assassinato foi abafado por 3 décadas. Aquele senso de autoproteção e aversão a qualquer coisa que pudesse manchar sua reputação idílica, que tanto contribuiu para a cegueira coletiva, tornou-se agora uma vergonha pública. Pense por um momento no que é preciso para um segredo como esse persistir por tanto tempo. Não se trata apenas da astúcia de um assassino, mas da inação, da hesitação e talvez até da conveniência de dezenas de pessoas que poderiam ter tido uma peça do quebra-cabeça. Não estou sugerindo cumplicidade no crime, mas uma cumplicidade no silêncio. Aquela era uma comunidade que valorizava a privacidade acima de tudo, onde a intromissão era mal vista e a discrição era uma virtude. Mas qual é o preço dessa discrição quando a verdade de um crime brutal está em jogo? A alegação de Miller de pânico e raiva era conveniente. Será que o homem que passou décadas vivendo uma vida aparentemente normal, um membro respeitado da comunidade, um pai de família, realmente agiu apenas por um impulso momentâneo? Ou essa defesa foi mais uma manobra calculada para reduzir sua pena? A frieza com que ele manteve a fachada de inocência por tantos anos, a maneira como ele continuou a viver em Oakhaven, frequentando os mesmos lugares, possivelmente cruzando com Eleanor Jenkins na rua, sugere um controle psicológico que ia muito além de um mero momento de fúria. Essa discrepância entre a capacidade diminuída e a vida perfeitamente orquestrada que ele levou por 30 anos permanece uma das mais inquietantes contradições do caso. Se você já se perguntou como as pessoas podem guardar segredos tão obscuros por tanto tempo, se essa história tocou em uma fibra de sua própria experiência ou observação, por favor, considere se inscrever no Verita Crime. É através de canais como este que essas histórias silenciadas encontram uma voz e que a busca pela verdade pode continuar, mesmo décadas depois. A transformação mais profunda talvez tenha ocorrido não em Miller, que permaneceu uma figura enigmática, mas na própria Eleanor Jenkins. A dor de perder uma filha nunca desaparece, mas a busca incansável por Sarah, a recusa em aceitar a narrativa conveniente, tinha moldado sua vida. Agora, com a condenação, ela podia, pela primeira vez em anos, respirar um ar ligeiramente diferente. A ferida ainda estava lá, profunda e incurável, mas a constante supuração da incerteza havia diminuído. O caso de Sarah Peterson e David Miller não é apenas um registro policial, é um estudo de caso sobre a fragilidade da justiça, a complexidade da memória coletiva e o poder esmagador do silêncio. É uma lembrança sombria de que a verdade, mesmo enterrada sobre anos de negação e conveniência, tem uma maneira persistente de encontrar seu caminho à superfície. Oakhaven nunca mais seria a mesma. A confiança, uma vez inquestionável entre vizinhos, estava irremediavelmente fissurada. Afinal, se alguém como Miller pôde existir e prosperar, escondendo um crime tão hediondo por tanto tempo, quem mais poderia estar escondendo o quê? Essa era a pergunta que agora assombrava as ruas antes pacíficas de Oakhaven. O trauma não era apenas a perda de Sarah, mas a erosão da segurança percebida, a dúvida plantada nas fundações da comunidade. Miller foi para a prisão e Oakhaven foi deixada para lidar com as cicatrizes de sua omissão.
Ninguém mais foi acusado, nenhuma prova de cúmplices diretos jamais surgiu. Mas a pergunta que permanece, como um eco insistente, não é sobre a culpa legal, mas sobre a responsabilidade moral. Quem, além de Miller, sabia ou suspeitava? E mais importante, o que fez com que essas pessoas permanecessem em silêncio? A resposta, creio eu, reside no tecido social de Oakhaven, na forma como a comunidade era construída sobre a evitação do confronto e a manutenção de uma paz superficial. É fácil julgar de fora, mas é preciso ter a coragem de olhar para dentro e questionar as próprias tendências. Pense em situações em sua própria vida ou comunidade onde o desconforto de falar supera o dever da verdade. Nesses momentos, a escolha de permanecer em silêncio pode ter consequências que se estendem muito além do que podemos imaginar. Reflita sobre o que essa história de Oakhaven nos diz sobre o peso da verdade não dita. Se você já se sentiu compelido a falar ou a permanecer em silêncio, compartilhe seus pensamentos nos comentários abaixo. Essas são as conversas que nos ajudam a entender a natureza humana e a complexidade da justiça. O grave havia finalmente falado, mas as lições de seu silêncio prolongado ressoariam por muitas gerações em Oakhaven, uma advertência sobre o custo oculto de uma paz superficial. A história de Sarah Peterson não terminou com a condenação de Miller. Ela continua a ser um testemunho do poder da perseverança de uma mãe e da frágil natureza da verdade em comunidades que preferem esconder seus segredos. A história de Sarah Peterson não terminou com a condenação de Miller. Ela continua a ser um testemunho do poder da perseverança de uma mãe e da frágil natureza da verdade em comunidades que preferem esconder seus segredos. Oakhaven, apesar da sentença, permaneceu marcada por uma cicatriz invisível. A cada olhar trocado, a cada porta fechada, o silêncio que outrora protegeu, agora a assombrava, forçando a cidade a confrontar o peso corrosivo da cumplicidade. The mill, the silent witness for so long, was completely demolished after the remains were found.
Its debris carted away, its foundations cleared. The physical landmark that had hidden Sarah's secret for so long was gone, but the emotional scars on Oakhaven remained. The truth, when it finally emerged, was not a simple revelation, but a profound indictment of a community that had prioritized comfort over justice and silence over truth. The story of Sarah Jenkins became a stark reminder of the long reach of secrets and how even the most carefully buried truths eventually find a way to the surface. It was a testament to the fact that while towns may try to keep their secrets, the earth eventually surrenders its dead, and the grave, in its own silent way, will always speak. The profound tragedy lies not only in Sarah's murder, but in the 3 decades of unacknowledged injustice. The grave spoke, but some questions still whisper in the wind. What other hidden truths do you believe are waiting to be uncovered in old cases? Leave your theories in the comments and let's keep the pursuit of truth alive.